fine. Why, thank you. It doesn't sound at all creepy. Um, so it's been a long time coming. I feel like this is a kind of a crossover of Marvel and DC proportions.
Yeah, definitely, man. I'm glad I finished the book, man. It was great reading the end of that. I only read like the first chapter or two, and I crammed it in the last couple of days.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, I maybe there will be a proposed trilogy. I promised my son there will be at least a hungover on Monday. I mean, the third installment, I don't think anybody really wants to read about my fictionalized self going through like a colonoscopy, but there's always that.
Yeah, no one's gonna read about it because I haven't done it yet.
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, obviously, well, we finished the Europe '72, anniversary tour. I haven't listened to every show, but I definitely enjoyed getting some of the intricacies. I mean, something I was thinking about. I mean, you can, I guess, give me your take on it. I guess, I mean, they at least did know that they were being recorded, so I have a feeling that probably made them play a little bit tighter. I mean, people talk about that with the Warlocks and Spring '90. I mean, I wasn't thinking about that when I was on Spring '90 or at the Meadowland show, but I guess if they know that they're getting the multi tracks going, that they probably are a little more focused.
Yeah, I would say so. But they had an agenda to get certain songs recorded for the album that hadn't been recorded, so that definitely was present. And it was kind of like a dual awareness. I think they were aware that they were playing for a future audience because there's no reason that a band recording an album is going to record a 50-minute Dark Star that they can never put on an album. So they had two things going on. They wanted to make the shows as great as possible. Plus, they knew they had specific songs that they wanted to get recorded for the album. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so it was a cool awareness. Plus, it was like maybe there was also a realization when they were on that tour that it was their last opportunity, to be together as a freewheeling, fun-loving family because the Grateful Dead we're on the verge of becoming so big. They already were so big, but it was like the Americans in Europe. And the last chance they had to ride around in Bozo and Bolo buses, and they jumped into it and really savored the moment. So there was a lot of positive things going on at tour, and one of the great things was the transition from going from Pigpen to Keith. No one knew for sure that it was Pigpen's last tour, but there was a feeling. Obviously, Keith was there and ready to kind of assume the position, but he was like the perfect, like low key personality to do it. And Lady Luck was shining on the Grateful Dead because if they went out searching for a keyboard player, they never would have found Keith Gottschall. It was just Donna happened to approach Jerry, and Keith went for the tryout, and it was just something that was meant to be.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard her tell that story before. Meanwhile, when you say assume the position, I can't not think about Kevin Bacon in Animal House, but that's uh, my own little thing. But yeah, I mean, I think also you're right, and I think that with Pigpen, I mean, my friend DJ follows on Facebook the cult of Ron McKernan, and there's more stuff about Pigpen. I mean, I never even heard his speaking voice until maybe a year ago, and someone showed me a video. But I do get the impression that they certainly were more aware of his health than maybe even they let on. And yeah, like you said, it's a very weird situation, for them. I mean, for him, I guess, to be playing and have this, semi-reduced role, which is already reduced from what it was in the 1968, era. And then yeah, to have Keith there. But yeah, I'd never really thought about, that the Good Lovins, half of them have jams and half of them have, Pigpen raps, and maybe that's the result of him pacing himself. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. And in a weird way, he was coming into his own as a songwriter, which was kind of sad because he came out, well, Mr. Charlie wasn't his writing per se, but he got Two Souls and Communion, and yeah, he was really kind of blossoming as a songwriter and the type of songs they were doing, which was fitting more in with the old weird American style of songs that the Grateful Dead were doing at the time. So like he was maturing, and he was maturing very quickly. He didn't have much time to mature.
Yeah.
So it was Pigpen in transition, but unfortunately, it was the end. It's very sad, but Europe 72 is a very good account for the direction he was headed in.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something I think you mentioned. I mean, 100 Year Hall. I have to find it. I have somewhere on my desktop, like the release that I don't even know what it was on. It was like a promotional CD that Gans, I think, was on the 100 Year Hall with Phil, and they talked about, that Long Other one, and I think they talked about whatever the Love Light that was on there. But yeah, it really did seem like in some ways, not only was it changing of the guard, but that particular like time. I mean, it seemed like they kind of had a cool little balance. I mean, obviously there are people who never thought that Dead River anything, after Pigpen played second fiddle to Jerry. But I'm not one of those people. I mean, like I enjoy my Princeton Good Lovin' as much as the next guy, but there are people that I know that could hear, a Pigpen rap for 40, 50 minutes and never get tired of it. And I love Pigpen, but I don't know that he was such a skilled bluesman that anybody really is that could pull it off without, there being a big guitar, finish in it.
Yeah, it doesn't take anything away from them that the Grateful Dead were the best band ever. After without him, they were the best band with him. They were the best band without him. So they,
Yeah.
they managed to carry on. There was just there was no stopping the Grateful Dead and everything that was going on there. And one thing with Europe '72, Pigpen, like at the 100 Year Hall at the time of that concert, he seemed pretty powerful. If you listen to
Right.
the tapes, he was he was doing a lot of songs. The raps were long. It really seemed like he was on his game. But by the end of the show at the Lyceum, he was barely singing at all, and outside of the first set songs. So
Yeah.
his health definitely took a downturn. But those Lyceum shows are so great. So during Europe '72, the Grateful Dead also kind of proved that they could work on without him. As sad as it is, but they were playing great shows at the Lyceum with not as much from Pigpen during those last four shows.
Yeah, I mean, I know. I mean, I don't own a turntable, but I'm sure I will hear whatever they're doing to the last night. I mean, again, I don't know how many different ways they can remix it. But then again, I have like, all 8,000 versions of Godfather 1 and 2. But I mean, I will say when I don't own the box, but I have, all the recordings. And I mean, I did notice when it came out, there was definitely little things. I mean, I'm not somebody who's so in tune that I can, have like exactly know a kind of a sound picture, but I mean there's definitely more like I think like organ. I definitely noticed more when they put it back out. I know that was something that they talked about trying to like maybe for the reasons you said maybe highlight Pigpen's accomplishments, but I definitely could hear that more. And then I think you also mentioned the book. I mean Jerry is playing not just pedal steel, but he's playing organ right on a couple like Good Lovins I think.
Yeah, towards the end in the Lyceum, I think he played on two good lovins.
Yeah, I don't know if that's kind of what you were, maybe I don't know if that had something to do with Pigpen as well. I mean, I've seen those pictures of him. Like I think it's like at the Little France show, and he's got like the long overcoat on and the glasses. I mean,
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, no, it's such an amazing tour in so many ways. There's every night, like one night the Dark Star masterpiece, the next night the other one masterpiece, and yeah, the music is just so fulfilling across the board. But hey, I'm going to throw a curveball here at you. I'm going to change subject. We're going to go ahead 15 years, man, because as I was reading your book, Drunk on Sunday, which I enjoyed, and it starts with a show that was special to me, Madison Square Garden, September 18th, 1987. Maybe you could talk about that a little, and then I'll chime in with my thoughts on that
yeah.
great show.
I mean, I'll tell you. I mean, I didn't know obviously at the time how iconic that show would be. I mean, like I wrote about it in the book, and the book is pretty much. I mean, the stuff in the book that is fictionalized, most of it has nothing to do with the Dead. And like I said, it's not fully fictionalized, or I would have had the Chargers win the Super Bowl or something. But um, I mean, it was a Friday night, like I said in the book. I mean, getting there, in high school, I only knew. I mean, you talked about it with your first show. I mean, I knew of Morning Dew. Obviously, I knew Shakedown, Wonder Smarter, Terrapin. I knew Buck is Sugary. I had not seen Jerry and Bobby on Letterman. So when they came out, and Bobby says, "Hey Rocky, let me, let's levitate Garcia." I mean, it was so loud, and I guess like you growing up in the tri-state area, I mean, that for me was like baseline for the Dead. Like all Dead shows, I thought would be, kind of like a sporting event. It would be super loud and super intense, and they would be, forced to be on their A game because the place would be going fucking bananas. And I mean, I remember, like I said, I remember the first set being short. I remember, the shakedown during the second set. I think when I bought your book and I got my first look at the DVD, which I'm sure, it's the same angle that whoever filmed the show. It's the one side. I mean, the audio has gone through 75 different improvements since it was. I remember, I think I went to It's Only Rock and Roll in high school, and I bought an audience copy of that show. Actually, I think you also talked about maybe buying an audience copy, but I bought an audience copy of that, and I believe the Palladium 43077. And I mean, with the Morning Dew, I remember people freaking out. I remember it was really cool. I think I might have had like the Hampton 84 Morning Dew. So I had no idea, obviously, that it would be, as legendary as it was. I mean, I've obviously seen it many times since then. And I was one of those people that used to email Lemieux and be like, why don't you put this out? And, I always thought like, and I mean, I didn't realize that so many other people probably thought the same thing along with Augusta. So I was blown away. And like I said, I didn't know how singularly special it was. You were already on tour. So like I said, I didn't get back to a show until Brendan Byrne 88, where they played Shakedown and Morning Dew again. And I remember thinking like, oh man, they played those two songs again. I mean, they were both excellent, not as good as The Garden, but I had no idea.
It definitely was. Yeah, it definitely wasn't as good as the one from '87. It was good.
No, no. But I mean, it was, yeah, my impressions were wow. Like I said, it was especially like I said, seeing at the Garden, because I had never seen a concert at the Garden. I mean, the only exposure I had to Madison Square Garden before that was, going to Knick games. And obviously in 85, 86, 87, the Knicks were pretty bad. And as much as I enjoyed going, I mean, it was a very different atmosphere, watching Ken Bannister and James Bailey and Louis Orr to, that Friday night.
Louis Orr, number 55, if I remember correctly.
Yes, he was. I went to the I went to the Martin Luther King game that's somewhere on YouTube where they beat the Celtics and he banked a 3-pointer win. And the crazy thing about that game was that Bird was actually on the foul line, able to ice the game, and missed 2 foul shots, which I would have to think is the only time that he missed 2 in succession. Meanwhile, I mean, the Celtics went to finals. We were terrible, but on that day, it was like the greatest thing in the world.
Well, that's amazing.
How many shows
was Walton on the team? Was Bill Walton on the team back then?
85, 80. He won 6 Man of the Year in '86, I believe. So yeah, I think that might have been that might have been the year he came back. I mean, my images of that, like Jerry Seasting, Greg Kite. I mean, but I mean, I remember. I mean, you had obviously gone to a fair amount of shows. You'd seen obviously Spectrum '82. You went to, I mean, that Providence '85 show. I always loved that first set. So you had like at least, and then your first show was the Garden '81. That's right, it's in the book.
Yeah. So my first show is like kind of like you. I was walking in only knowing some of the songs. They played Ramble on Rose. It was great. Right. It was, but like you walked into the perfect storm of emotion. Like the '81 show, the crowd was definitely a little mellower. For New York City, it's hard to say they were mellow, but it was definitely mellower than '87. In '87, it was just the emotion at that time was crazy because Jerry just survived, the coma. It's coming back to New York City. It's Friday night. It's sold out. It's tough to get tickets. They could have been terrible, and the crowd was going nuts, But the crowd. That was like one situation where the crowd was like the sixth man, really pulling the Grateful Dead through, pulling Jerry through. Was the beauty of like that performance in the second set in the Morning Dew. It's like he went beyond what he was really capable of. The audience just brought it out of him. Like when he sang that Morning Dew with so much emotion, and the Garden audience was like intelligent, and they were you could hear a pin drop when he was singing, and after he finished singing and hit the perfect pitch, the crowd would go nuts, and it just drew him to greater and greater heights. When I was there during the jam, it was one of the most exciting things I've ever seen, like in a live event. I had to slap the ground 3 times. I thought I was like dreaming. I was like, this is unbelievable. It was so good. And really an amazing night and just packed with emotion. Maybe
there's no build up in that. I mean, that's one thing obviously I didn't know because it was my first show, but what sets that Dew apart is that, he has that, anyway, that long holds the note, and then there's no like subtlety. There's no like Winterland '74 where he's just tinkering. I mean, he just starts ripping it off, and that, I mean, I can't think of another version that really, I mean, I'm trying to think what else he even played on that tour. Like it really is, like you said, I mean, maybe that really was what did it. It was just a combination of, the Post in the Dark. I mean, I forget whatever it was. It was at the second show where, they ended up playing Touch out of Scarlet because Clive Davis was like, why are you guys not playing your one hit? And
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that was like I said, but yeah, I mean you at least had enough under your belt to know what a big deal it was. I was just like, oh, this is the song from that tape I have, and people are fucking losing their mind.
Yeah, I was part of it. It's one of the cool
Yeah.
things, obviously, when you're in the thick of a Grateful Dead show, it's kicking ass and the crowd's there, and you're part of it. You do feel like you have something to do with it. Like
Oh yeah,
just
and
you're
at the Garden, yeah,
yeah.
definitely. I mean,
It's
I
kind of like being at a sporting event, like you're cheering for the team, and you feel you're cheering, and the crowd's cheering is pushing them to higher ground. So, yeah, no, that was a very very cool part of that night. It was like I'm here, I'm helping them along, and it was man, it was amazing. And like for that one time in 1987, there was like this belief that when you would see something like that, that maybe the Grateful Dead could go back to where they were, be
yeah.
as good, have another great 15 years. Everything's going to be great. The dream was alive for a little bit, but then 1988 came around. And you had the up and down, and it kind of went that way for a while. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I still remember, yeah, show number two coming out, and it was a good show at the Meadowlands. But I remember, like, Jerry had the short haircut. I mean, they just come from Hampton, and everybody was raving about the Hampton show, and Bobby had the pink guitar, and people were like, "What does that mean? Is Bobby trying to make a statement?" I mean, you know, looking back, my God, if Bob Weir, I mean, I'm convinced that Bobby, including forgetting lyrics, has always just been fucking with us and playing like the long con of a prank on people, but. Yeah, I remember hearing stuff in the lot like, we got the guitar from David Gilmour and blah, blah, blah. Like, it was such a big deal. Like, if we're going to break down the shit that Bob Weir was, playing or wearing or doing on stage, I mean, that would be an entire, well, there is a book by Minkin on that. But it's also crazy for me to think about being at that show. And, you're obviously at that point kind of a seasoned veteran. And then I'm like, kind of imagining myself, let's say at like, Albany 90 or some other show where, I've been there enough to know like, okay, well, this is really like better than even like a really good show, and that there's probably some kid, sitting in the Knickerbocker who's like, why is everybody freaking out, or like, what's this jam after Terrapin? Why are people like making such a big deal about it?
Funny you mentioned Knickerbocker. That's the one show I got kicked out of, and I talked my way back in. I had a ticket, and I was sneaking down. It wasn't my ticket; it was my friend's taper ticket. And then I went for a walk, and a security guard caught me. He's like, "Where's your ticket?" I'm like, "I couldn't find." He threw me out. He just threw me out the door. I wasn't even doing anything. So he threw me out, and then I actually went up to like the vice president's office or something in the Knickerbocker. I was talking to some guy in a suit. I was like, "This is so unfair," but they let me back in.
Wait, which shit was this the first year of the '90s shows?
Yeah, yeah. It was when the Knickerbocker just opened.
All right, so that was, yeah, it was the first night. So what, like, say you were arguing with, I didn't even know there wasn't, God, if I knew there was a president in that place. And so that was like during the
Yeah.
show that you were having this conversation with them?
Oh, it was before the show. I got back in
Oh,
at the
okay.
beginning of the show.
I'm just having this
Yeah,
like
I
image.
got, I got like I couldn't believe the security guard. Like it was totally unexpected. It was like, is this guy actually pushing me out the door? Like I'm not going to turn around and start such surprise that he's pushing me out the door, but he pushed me out the exit door. And and I was probably assuming I wasn't doing anything. I probably had two beers in my system. So it
Again,
was
yeah.
pretty crazy.
I mean, again, I make the Animal House reference. Like, we didn't even steal anything. I mean, it's funny though. Yeah, I did the image of like them playing that loser or something, and like you're trying to like get yourself back inside the building. Yeah, I
And
mean,
Ross, one other thing, I'm going to switch topics on you again totally here. The San Diego Chargers.
mm,
I just got to ask this. As a kid, I was a Cincinnati Red fan, a Miami Dolphin fan, and I was really into them. I did a lot of the crazy things you did, sent out the letters to the players and whatnot. But somewhere when maybe when I was 16, 17, I just said it's much easier to be a New York fan. I could watch the games every day, and eventually I made the transition. How did you stick with the Chargers, man? It kind of amazes me.
yeah, I put it in the book. I think, especially like, in the early '90s, when I was at school in Rochester and they just got shittier, there was a part of me, and obviously this is perfect for being a deadhead because, again, you and I can probably both attest to the fact that, when you tell people how many Dead shows you've been to, they're like, that's a lot, but it's not a lot for Grateful Dead fans. I think it was just stubbornness. And I think, definitely something that comes out in my book is that I clearly kind of saw myself as a, kind of a character, what I thought was going to be a, movie about a guy who just never, never gave up on the things he thought were so important. And, I decided that one of those things was just going to be the Chargers. And, as maddening as they were, it also became kind of part of, my identity when I'm in Rochester and I'm going to like, the bars to watch them on satellite. And again, as I wrote in the book, I mean, these are the 4 years the Bills win the Super Bowl every year. First year is the Giants, it's the Giants Bills Super Bowl. I mean, so everybody in Rochester basically either is probably a Giants fan or a Bills fan that lives up there. And here I am rooting for this shitty 4-12 team. I guess, I guess it's got kind of satisfaction out of, being able to say that I stuck with it. But like I said, I mean, now it's, I'm 51 years old, and despite all of the things you say hanging behind me, and I, on the other side, I don't want to move the microphone, but I have the Fouts, Winslow, West Chandler next to my my picture of the '73 RFK show with Jerry and the Pigtails. It still hasn't entirely paid off. So that
Yeah, one day, man, one day they might get there. I think
I think
one
got
of the
there.
things that made it easy.
Yeah.
Well, you got
They
there
get
'cause
there,
you
they
get
like you
the
said about the Giants, when you get there, you got to win. I mean,
yeah.
uh,
Yeah, you got to win. You got to win at least one, and maybe that you can move on after that. But hey, maybe one of the things that made it easy for me as a fan of the Reds and the Miami Dolphins is they won a Super Bowl and a World Series championship. So as time's going on, I'm like, there's no more Johnny Bench, Larry Zonka's gone. Why am I rooting for this team? It just I was like, let me root for the Yankees and the Giants. But
where
yeah, again,
Larry Zonka was for a short period of time in between his stint on $6 Million Man, he was on the Giants. I remember.
wow, I don't even remember the $6
He was.
million.
Oh, he was. Yeah, he was on the episode of the $6 Million Man. It was Larry Zonka, Carl Weathers, which obviously he was on the Raiders, but obviously it's Apollo Creed, and Frank Gifford. I'll send you the link, and I believe they're all wearing
Oh,
like
cool.
Rocky 3 level like crop tops. I don't even remember what the plot was, but somehow they all got involved. It did not involve Bigfoot. That much I remember because that was under the Giants character with all that like awful face makeup. I was a member of the $6 Million Man fan club, which should not be surprising. Um,
Yeah.
which I had a membership
Yeah,
card.
you definitely have loved the movie references and the TV references. I think you spent a little more time watching that stuff than I did. I was totally locked up in my music and sports. To this day, I still don't see a lot of movies because I'm between the writing and the sports just drags me in all the time, man. Every time I think I'm out, they drag me in.
Well, see, there you go. I mean,
Celtics.
it's Godfather 3, but it's still a movie. But yeah, I mean, I totally get, and yeah, I mean, I think that's something like I said that we definitely share in common, and I think I mentioned to you one of the first times we spoke is I remember reading your first book after going to the further show in Coney. I remember seeing like a lot of because that one obviously was extremely autobiographical, and you're talking about being on the road and and seeing Dylan shows and and trying to work in some semblance of a level life with that. And I remember thinking like, wow, like this is like I said, like this is kind of what you talk about wanting to write the books that you want to see being written. I remember thinking like, oh, I could kind of like tell a story like that. And then I realized that like I probably was gonna have to fictionalize a little bit, although not much, because I'm not quite as interesting, at least my wife tells me, as I think I am. So
Hey, yeah, Tangled Up in Tunes, man. That was a labor of love I put many years into. I'm glad it helped you in a way
it did.
to get your story out.
It did,
Cool.
and like I said, I got the DVD, which I'm sure somewhere of the Garden '87 as well. So it was like I mean, it literally is the only book I've ever bought in the lot of a Dead show. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I mean, even including Dead Bases, which I wrote for because those I had to mail away for it. So I mean, now I mean, I can only imagine. I assume you're going to go to the. Are you going to go to City Field? Or do
Yeah.
do you bring the whole the whole kit and caboodle
The library. And yeah, now that I got a car, funny that night you saw me at Further. I lived on the Upper East Side. I had one book, Tangled Up in Tunes, and I was all in, trying to get this thing out there. And I would go to all the shows, but I didn't have a car. So I actually I took a bag and a hand truck and went on the subway and walked from the subway to the Coney Island. What was the name of it? It was Coney Island. It was outdoor thing.
It was MCU. It's the stadium. It was
Yeah.
before it was Keyspan Park. It was MCU Stadium, which I guess is where the the Cyclones now play. But yeah, that first year, and I think I went only to the Saturday show, but and they played Saturday and Sunday. But yeah, that first year it was like bananas. There were just so many people
Yeah.
there, and
It was a lot of fun, man, and I dragged those books out there and hung out and had a great time and saw most of the show. And I definitely I found out that it's a pretty cool thing to do because it's original that to be out there with your book. Now I have like a whole bunch. I'm out there in my Deadology, my Europe '72, and yeah, no, it's a pretty cool thing. And the Grateful Dead fans are just they're amazing. There's no other fan base that you can play to like that, where they're supportive of everybody, other artists, writers. They go out of the way to be supportive of you.
it's
So it's a
crazy.
pretty
Like
cool thing.
yeah,
Hey,
I'm sure you've seen it. I mean, the lot scene. Obviously, as you remember, nobody when Jerry was alive called it Shakedown, or maybe near the end they did, but like it was just a lot. Like and it's obviously become. I vaguely remember during those further shows, like that's when I started to see like people. There was no Venmo, but I remember the guy that does the Steal Your Face of every team. Like he had like the heat press out there, and I remember that's around the time I was like, the lot scene's getting way more advanced than
yeah,
Rasta Pasta and Kind Bud for your extra and
yeah, it's big business, man. It's credit cards and but yeah, yeah, no, it's cool stuff. The first time I seen it was something like it was 1987 in Philly. I remember I was talking to my friend, we were walking around, we saw like a lane of vendors, not nothing like it is today, but it seemed like they had gotten together and created like a little shakedown. I think I called it Lover's Lane as we were walking through, and and it was yeah, but it's cool how the thing grown and yeah, now it's all over the place. Any Grateful Dead related activity, and it pops up, which is nice.
yeah, no, I mean it is crazy. I mean, you see it for Dark Star, you see it for
Yeah,
anything. If I go to like not even just Dark Star, but if I see anything out in Long Island, if I go to like the Paramount, yeah, there's always that one guy that's like selling T-shirts and stickers that goes to everything.
yeah, and I never begrudge anybody out there selling anything. I think it's all good. It celebrates the music. It's good for the bands. It's good for the person doing it. So it's all pretty cool.
So what you I mean, I don't know if these is not the greatest interview, but so what I mean, you have obviously two books out now. So I mean, are you going to take a break or what?
Oh, Jesus Christ. COVID blues. I didn't even mention that. That's my little fiction of a guy who was a manager. To put it to sum it up best, I would say it's like Field of Dreams meets Almost Famous in the middle of a pandemic, and it's definitely it's all fictionalized. It's about a guy in New York City battles COVID. He goes off with his friend who's a guitarist, and they hit the road, and everything you can imagine COVID related roadblocks pop up along the way. But the music wins out. It's how music transcends and heals, and it can even beat an invisible enemy like COVID-19. And I think that's what we're proving right now, where we're triumphing over it, even though it's still out there. It's
Yeah,
music's more powerful than COVID. For sure.
yeah.
And
I mean,
it's a fun little book. If you love music, there's 10 million music references in that. So hopefully people will check
I
out the COVID blues.
absolutely. And
Hey,
so
Ross, I got to ask you: Are you planning on doing another book anytime
I
soon?
am. The funny thing is, what I'm doing right now is it's a bit of a departure. I'm writing a book on the 45th anniversary of Cheap Trick at Budokan, which I do like Cheap Trick, but obviously when it comes to that, I mean they and I do share a lot in common with the Dead because before they broke out of Budokan, they were this cult quirky band, and certainly in the 90s when before they we have 10 minutes, that's good. Before they kind of got a second and third act, I mean the only people following them around were like kind of the Cheap Trick super fans, but that's something I've been working on, and it's interesting because it's a totally different um, area for me. I'm not an expert. It's kind of led me into looking at. I know Cream magazine's finally coming back, but a whole other level of people that were not paying a ton of attention to the Dead. Although I have read some of these old like Madison, Wisconsin, like Mad City Journal, and they're talking about like the Dead coming to Dane County, but that's what I've been working on, and it's almost finished with the proposal stage. I mean, much like Drunk on Sunday, and I will go back to at least writing the second, part of that, because I certainly did enjoy it. But hopefully it'll be a little bit more commercial. I mean, you wouldn't think so, but for me, like I said, it's more mainstream than stuff that I wrote about. But it is weird because I'm not used to like this, like interviewing people. I've had to get over my fear of not talking all the time, of actually asking questions and waiting for the answer. And so it's been pretty interesting. One of the guys actually that I did speak to, I know you don't watch a lot of TV, is not from Iron Maiden, but Bruce Dickinson, the guy whose name they used for the More Cowbell sketch.
I'm sorry, what was the guy's name?
The guy, Bruce Dickinson, the guy they used for the More Cowbell sketch.
Oh, got you.
And here's a reference you get. I actually just got this in the mail today because I wanted to get his advice. I did write out a letter to the guy who played Damone in Fast Times, who did actually send me an index card with his autograph and telling me that I already quoted all the information that he knew on Cheap Trick beside what was in the movie.
Wow. Yeah, my Cheap Trick Zero. I think I know one song. What was it called? Surrender? Is that the big one?
Yeah, it's on Budokan, But
Yeah.
that's
I don't
not,
even think I don't think I had that album.
but you've heard that
I've
version. I mean, right? If somebody says, "I want you to want me," not just that, you at least probably know that it's a song you heard on any
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah, and yeah, you were like kind of heading towards asking me if I was working on something new. I got.
Yes, that's it. You
I
cut me
can't.
off.
I can't stop, man. I can't stop, man. About like it's if you're right, like once you get the writing bug, it's you promote your book when it comes out, and then I'm like, okay, what am I doing next? And now I have three projects in mind, but I think one I just this one occurred to me today. I'm going to do a third run up to Deadology, volumes 1 and 2. I'm going to do like a third one where I'm going to probably pick out the 33 greatest first and second sets, where they're just like these perfect sets, with that flawless, brilliant Grateful Dead sets, and just write about those.
So I'm like,
I think
I'm like, okay, 21370 Veneta. I mean, I guess
yeah, and it's cool because like sometimes you think of them as you think of you rate shows, but a show is a big thing. It's like it could be 3-4 hours, and there's different momentums in them. A set is like it's a perfect thing. It's almost like a movie.
yeah.
So I'm gonna forget the totality of the show and just look at the sets individually, and just pick out the 33 best first sets and the 33 best second sets and write about them. At least that's what I was thinking about. I got a few things going on. I was going to do a tour. I was going to go back and actually drive 40 years later, do a tour where I actually did the tour, go back to all the places where I saw the Grateful Dead. Like in 1983, I saw like 11 out of 11 shows on the East Coast. I'm thinking about going back to all the places with the music and just, capturing what it was then, what it is now, and, all the differences. And maybe starting a new cottage industry of doing tours, kind of like ghost tours or something, But I
Man,
definitely think
you went to Barton Hall.
something like that. I could find, yeah, something like that would definitely bring a lot of material going back 40 years later to each show and reliving the road trip, on the exact dates, the anniversary of the dates.
Yeah, and also, I mean, your Jerry Band book that I also read. I mean, I'm sitting here in Stony Brook right now, but like that was one of the nicest places. Like, I mean, I think if I recall correctly, I mean, the skating rink in Setauket isn't. I know where it was. I was obviously living in Westchester as a kid, but I mean, you went to some really ratty fucking places. I'm trying to think. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you definitely went to a Calderon show at Hempstead, I think. I mean, and anything in Hempstead is shady.
Yeah. Hey, the place was called Good Skates. It was
Yes,
1984, August 6th,
8/16, yeah.
August. Yep. And there was the one show I was dancing, and I actually had to stop because I was almost dizzy and ready to pass out. It was like that hot in there. I don't know how Garcia got through that
I've
tour.
seen those pictures.
was-
I mean, he wasn't. I mean, the picture you have is your icon, which I think it looks like 83 or 84. I mean, it's definitely not the stringy Jerry hair, because that.
Yeah.
I mean, all those shows, that Moosic, New Jersey show. I mean, they're all great to listen to. I mean, even the Reseda one from May. But yeah, I mean, Jerry's condition. It is a
Yeah.
rough look. I mean, I remember reading I think on the archive, somebody was talking about like the Carrier Dome show that like they saw them getting out of the car to get ready to go in, and Jerry got out of, I guess it was the limo. I don't know if he's holding his briefcase, and he just like fell right on the sidewalk like on his ass. And the person was thinking like, there's no way Jerry's going to be able to play the show. And then like they'd shake down. They're like, holy shit. He's like, I mean, I've seen some of those videos like Merryweather 84. He's not moving. He's playing his ass off.
Yeah. Yeah, that was it was the weirdest thing. It almost gave him a more godlike appearance, to be honest. Like you would go to, like, I was at a show, Philly Civic Center on April 20th, 1984. A great show. We were second row. Jerry had the red shirt on. We were right in front of him. The guy didn't move. He was like, just, but he's the most amazing music's coming out of him. And like, not looking back, we know his various drugs, this and that, but still he played the freaking greatest music, and you love listening to the tape. And it added to it, just like, this guy, he's a god. He's just standing there creating this great music, and he's not moving. It's like,
Yeah, I
it
mean,
was
it's also. I mean, I think that I know they just released that on a Dave's Picks, but yeah, I was listening to that Fire recently. I'm like, his voice obviously sounds shot, but going back to where we started, I only have like 3 minutes left of my basic Zoom, but I mean, it is a little bit like, to use a sports analogy or even a boxer. I mean, Jerry obviously was at least vocally and appearance wise, not 100%, but yeah, I mean, those 84, 85, before I got on the bus, I mean, some of those shows just, guitar. I mean, I was swimming with my son on Sunday, and I was like, you know what, I'm in the mood for just like a real ratty 85 show. And I put on that Brendan Byrne 85 the second night with the Walking the
oh
Dog
my
deal.
god,
And
that fret.
yeah.
That's a good one. I was going to talk about the night before, but that's a great one too.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't there, but it's funny because across the street, somebody's blasting music, and I'm like, I think I hear an 85 half step. The guy's like, you do? I'm like, nice. But yeah, the night before has that has a half
Yeah.
step. It wasn't what he was playing, and then yeah, it's got that.
Yeah, that one's November 10th, that first set. That's what I'm talking about, like, with a perfect first set where they play like maybe the greatest version of Cassidy, the group, to Feel Like a Stranger's the greatest version. And it just, like, they were so on fire in that first set. That's like a great piece of music. The second set was not nearly as good as the first one, even though they opened up with a half step, but it was a quick half step.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was half step rider, but it was quick. It was a quick half step. It wasn't that good compared to what half step should be with the time, where Jerry takes his time and does the jams. But yeah, it was like hit or miss, man. That's why I think what the new project I'm looking to with the sets in the '80s, man, they would kick ass on sets. They didn't have the endurance to do the whole show like kick ass for like 3 hours, but they would lock into sets and it would be as good as anything. The '70s is where you really got both the first and second set. They could play two sets brilliantly and just, be all-time great worthy, both sets.
Yeah, I mean, I only have 90 seconds, but I remember I'd gotten the board of
Pressure's
that.
on.
But yeah, exactly.
81, 80.
I got the board of that Providence 85 show that I know you were at, and you mentioned it on YouTube as like being one of the great first sets. And what's very funny is I think I pointed out to Lemieux, who I know does not, particularly love my sense of humor, which is fine. But I wasn't even joking. You can hear on the board tape, I think it's Mickey who says like, Jerry, let's play Monkey and the Engineer, which obviously they didn't play, but they play, they play That She Belongs to Me. There's a couple other things. I mean, I hadn't played Crazy Fingers in a while on that second set.
Yeah. They came out with intention to like do different stuff to play great. They were like, hey, let's not be boring. Let's go out. We haven't done this song in a while. It was the first version of She Belongs to Me.
66, yeah.
Yeah. There was a lot of vocal flubs there, but the playing is so hot. They ended up the first set with Lost Sailors Sing Deal, just absolutely smoking, and Jerry had a ton of vocal flubs that night, but the music was so great. It just, it put,
I love that Alabama
out.
Getaway Jack Straw. That's amazing, Jack Straw.
Incredible.
So I'm this is, when we get cut off here, I'm gonna take this. I'm sure it's I'm not gonna do much editing. And I will send you the video, and we'll put it up on our respective places. And like I said, yeah, I mean, hopefully, over the summer, we'll probably be in the same place, the